The altitude is being brought down from 800 meters and we are nearing and approaching the lunar surface.
जी हाँ, आप अपने स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं कि हम लैंडर मॉड्यूल
People are applauding. Let us all wait to hear from the Secretary Department of Space and Chairman ISRO, Shri S. Somnath.
I am confident that all countries in the world, including those from the global south, are capable of achieving such feats.
This isn't just a first for India, it's a first in lunar exploration. No one successfully landed near the moon's south pole before, and it's a place of real interest for space science and also space exploration. It's one of the coldest places in the solar system, where water and other important chemicals are frozen in deep, shaded craters.
If we can go and land a spacecraft there, drive a rover around, take a sample, analyse it, then we can actually measure samples that could be 1 billion years old, who've just been waiting there for us to analyse and discover. And it'll tell us about how the solar system used to be, what were the conditions like when Earth formed.
And if rovers can confirm abundant, accessible frozen water at the moon's pole, that's a potential resource. Water and oxygen for a future moon base. Water, too, can be used to make rocket fuel. That raises the prospect of the moon as a staging post for fueling trips back to Earth or on to Mars. And right now, the moon has never been busier. In May, Japan's iSpace crashed on landing. At the weekend, Russia's Luna 25 failed to go into orbit and crashed too. India, of course, has just landed successfully. This Saturday, Japan's space agency is launching SLIM, its high-tech robotic moon lander. In November, we're expecting the launch of 2 NASA-funded missions, again to the moon's south pole. Next year, NASA is planning to send astronauts around the moon as part of its Artemis mission, and China is planning a robotic moon mission for next year also. So we can expect more heroic robotic landings and possibly a few new craters. But all this activity raises the controversial question of who owns the moon. In the 1967 Outer Space Treaty prohibits any territorial claims, but it doesn't say much about exploiting resources in space. NASA has drafted the so-called Artemis Accords, a set of principles that would allow the use of lunar resources for the benefit of humanity. 28, mainly Western nations, have signed up. India has joined them. But Russia and China are opposed, saying these accords only serve American interests. As in the Cold War past, it seems our moon will continue to reflect political differences here on Earth.
The very first pictures are emerging from India's rover on Earth's satellite. The Chandrayaan-3 rover has captured the moon's image just prior to touchdown. Extraordinary pictures there. We also have images of the rover ramping down from the lander onto the lunar surface. And the satellite has made history as it was the first to touch down on the south pole of the moon. So there's the rover coming off the lander, and that will go on now to carry out some experiments on the surface of the moon there at the south pole. So fascinating to see what it finds out.
Yeah, I was just really in disbelief. It's really hard to still even swallow what's happening. Even the visual of coming in for the first time and seeing the disaster, it's really heartbreaking.
My name is Steven Durianza Jr. From Kahului, Maui. There was a Lahaina fire, some devastation, so we're out here with the World Central Kitchen trying to help out.
So we started off at the college, at the Maui Community College. We prepped for close to 9,000 plates to distribute all over island. We were the first 3 trucks to hit the west side. We covered Burger King in Lahaina, We covered Times Supermarket in Honokawai and here at Napili Plaza at the Napili Market.
It's been going good. Yeah, it's been going good. It took a while to come out, a lot of traffic, but it's running smoothly now. There's a lot of family, friends, loved ones that lost their homes, lost some family members, so we're just trying to help out. I know the other side really feels it. A lot of food drives going on, shelters, churches, trying to help out. But I think we need to spin some positive stories right now.
Some of us took our own vehicles to visit the family homes to distribute more fuel, ice, and ready-to-eat food. Yeah, so it was really good. We got to help out with getting people fed some food that they didn't have to cook. There's something special to be said that the whole community is coming together and being able to see everybody working together, donating, helping, and making sure everybody's needs are being met. There's something to say about that.
The extinctions at the end of the Ice Age was the biggest extinction event that happened on Earth since the dinosaurs went extinct. I'm Emily Lindsay, Assistant Curator and Excavation Site Director at La Brea Tar Pits. This is a site that has tens of thousands of years leading up to that event, captures the extinction event, and then also captures what the ecosystem looked like after most of the large mammals disappeared. That event is captured right here at La Brea Tar Pits. So for most of the last 50 million years, pretty much every ice-free continent on Earth looked a lot like Africa, in that there were a lot of large mammals all over the place. Somewhere between about 10 and 20,000 years ago, most of the large mammals everywhere except Africa went extinct. And the reason for these extinctions has been the subject of intense debate for the last 70 years. And the problem has been that nobody has been able to determine exactly when most of these megafauna actually disappeared because the fossil record is really spotty. So La Brea Tar Pits is unique because it's the only site where you get thousands of individuals of particular species that can be studied, both in terms of what they looked like, but also in terms of the chemistry in their bones. So all of these fossils are jawbones of animals that we dated for this project. Because the asphalt preserves bones so well, we were able to take little pieces of these bones and radiocarbon date them. This allows us to find out exactly when each of these animals died, but it also allows us to study questions like what they ate, what the climate was like that they were living in, and even whether or not they were migrating. Of the more than 5 million fossils that we have found so far at La Brea Tar Pits, these are 4 of the most important. So what these are the jawbones of the very last saber-toothed cat, the very last direwolf, the very last western horse, and the very last ancient bison in North America. And these are the youngest ones, not only at our site, but it turns out anywhere on the North American continent. And so as we're trying to make inferences, about some of the biggest questions in conservation biology today, which are, what are going to be the long-term impacts of climate changes? What are the impacts of human landscape change? And what are the impacts on ecosystems of what we call now defaunation, or the loss of large-bodied animals from ecosystems? At the point where we found human population to really start to dramatically increase in North America, we see this incredibly intense period of fires happening right here. And it's right in this interval when all of the megafauna species disappear. We are pretty much the only place on Earth that has the data necessary to really look at what happened the last time we went through a significant climate change interval. And so understanding why these fires happened in the past and the impacts that they had on ecosystems is going to be able to help land managers and planners today to make decisions about how we can best preserve species, how we can best protect human property and human life, and how we can help our current human-dominated landscape transition into this new climate that we are entering.
forces are counterattacking in the devastated city of Bakhmut. 1 year ago this week, the siege of another Ukrainian city, that's Mariupol, ended. It was one of the deadliest battles of the war. Tens of thousands of civilians were killed there. Charlie D'Agata spoke with two of the Ukrainian soldiers who were captured and brutalized.
For months, the soldiers of Ukraine's Azov regiment withstood relentless Russian bombardment beneath a sprawling steelworks complex, until there was no choice but to surrender or die. Chief Sergeant Kirilo and Commander Arsen Dmitrik were among the men hauled away to a Russian POW camp.
Were you fearful for your life?
Yes, of course.
This is what Kirilo looked like when he was released in a prisoner swap 4 months after their surrender.
It didn't look like you had enough to eat.
We ate food with no calorific value, mostly with no salt, tea with no sugar, and nothing overall. I lost 30 kilos.
That's more than 65 pounds. They won't discuss whether they were tortured in order to protect their fellow POWs still inside, but it was about to get much worse. Commander Arsen says some of his men were transferred into another barracks when there was a massive explosion followed by an inferno. Arsen describes the scene as a vision of hell.
Everything was on fire. All of the guys are screaming. Some bodies are starting to burn down. Our boys started giving medical aid on the spot.
Most people are of the belief that the Russians were responsible for that. What is your belief?
It was Russians, 100%.
More than 50 of their fellow service members perished. The two men again escaped death.
They want to see their families.
Then forced onto Russian TV, they said, to show how well they'd been treated. Eventually, they were freed in a prisoner swap. When their health improved, they went right back to fight.
Do you think you'll get Mariupol back?
Obviously, 100%. Now it's personal for us against them.
Not only to win, but in their words, to prove the Russians didn't break us. For CBS Mornings, Charlie D'Agata, Kyiv.
I was born in Zanzibar, but I left when I was like 4 months old when my father died. My mother came back to England with me, and her mother lived in Blackpool, which is also by the sea. So I think those sort of early experiences were very much to do with water, but without kind of knowing that. My name's Lubaina Hamid. I'm a painter. In my time and on and off, I curate shows, write things. We're in a studio that I've rented in Cornwall. It's somewhere that feels like inside, but feels like outside at the same time. I made maybe 100 works on paper, just trying to sort of learn everything I could about what the sea does, what the sky does, what the sand does, what the water and the air do. That really sort of informed the way that I can talk about the politics of the transatlantic slave trade, the way that I can talk about where I was born. People ask me about the Black Art movement in the 1980s, but at the time, really, we were just trying to do what we wanted to do. We were just trying to be artists, frankly. Fashionable marriage was a kind of furious intervention that I wanted to make. It's a big installation. So what I was trying to do was say, look, folks, there were black people interacting in British society in the 18th century. They were like real human beings, not just a kind of anonymous nobodies. And that, at that time, was the beginning of, a whole set of people who were trying to fit in, trying to conform, but a whole set of people were thinking, actually, do you know something? This is time to change. And that's what the piece is about. As an African artist, what's important to me is that there is a community, there is a conversation across our shared experience. I've sort of devised almost memorial planks, if you like, that commemorate the auntie. Aunties are women who are like in and out of your house, talking to your mum, the sisters of your dad, women who weren't related to your family at all, but took you out on a Sunday and let you eat ice cream in the street. And I wanted to kind of commemorate those women. I am always trying to find inner dialogue, inner life, the things that are very, very important to us, how love is important to us, or how family is important, or how maybe even that work that we do is very important. I'm trying often to paint moments of doing one thing, but thinking and feeling another thing that no one else can see.
Before the Foley fight, Ali had received word that he had been drafted and would have to report for induction the following month. While his lawyers prepared to challenge the draft order, Ali met privately with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Louisville. King was in town to protest the city's segregated housing. Though the two men differed about black separatism, they found common ground in their views on the war in Vietnam.
Do you share the same concern that Mohammed has for his draft status?
Oh, I certainly do. My views on the draft are very clear. I'm against it. And I think the sooner our country does away with the draft, the better it will be for everybody.
In April of 1967, hundreds of thousands of anti-war protesters marched in New York City. But most Americans still supported the war, and criticizing U.S. policy on Vietnam remained politically treacherous, especially for African Americans. Meanwhile, Muhammad Ali's lawyers had delayed his induction date by claiming the boxer resided in Houston, where he had trained for his recent fights. Now, a new order required him to report to local draft board number 47 in Houston at 8:30 a.m. on April 28th. Before he left Louisville, Ali gave a press conference explaining his position.
Why should me and other so-called Negroes go 10,000 miles away from home here in America to drop bombs and bullets on other innocent brown people who's never bothered us? And I will say directly, no, I will not go 10,000 miles to help or kill innocent people.
5 days later, Muhammad Ali, flanked by his lawyers, arrived at the old post office building in Houston. Then, at the induction ceremony, Ali refused to step forward when his name was called. A Navy lieutenant explained the penalty should he be found guilty of refusing induction: a $10,000 fine and up to 5 years in prison. Given another chance to step forward, Ali refused again.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
The reaction was swift and severe. Within hours, the chairman of the New York State Athletic Commission denounced his conduct as detrimental to the interests of boxing, stripping him of his license to fight in New York. Almost every other boxing commission in the United States followed suit. The World Boxing Association took away Ali's title for a second time.
Well, at the time I was in the service, and one would think that I would think of him as a traitor or someone who didn't want to do what I'm doing, you know. But I was all for it. And I found that many of the black servicemen were all for it as well. They appreciated him speaking up because at the time, there was a lot of dissent among African-American servicemen. This was the Vietnam era. A lot of black men were being killed. They were thinking of themselves as cannon fodder. And I met some of the most radical figures I've ever met in the ranks of the Air Force and the Army. So we appreciated him speaking out and saying things like that.
With drug overdose deaths continuing to hover near record levels, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved for the first time an over-the-counter version of the opioid overdose antidote Narcan. Dr. Julie Nowinski-Konjak, an addiction medicine physician with Cook County Health, applauds the decision.
Anything that we can do at the policy and system level to make naloxone, or trade name Narcan, more available and accessible is a great thing for overdose prevention.
Narcan rapidly reverses the effects of an opioid overdose, including situations where fentanyl is involved. Today's action paves the way for the life-saving medication to be sold directly to consumers in places like grocery and convenience stores. It's a move some advocates say is a long time coming.
I've picked people up out the alley, young folk, and it's not an easy sight to see.
Reverend Robin Hood is the pastor at Greater Rock Church in Lawndale. It's in close proximity to the Eisenhower Expressway, nicknamed the Heroin Highway. Hood says at any given time, people have overdosed steps away from the church. He has called on Marnell Brown with the outreach organization To Walk in My Shoes, who responds with a supply of Narcan, sometimes going through 100 boxes a day. Brown says while he also supports the move by the FDA, he wants to see the greater problem of drug addiction addressed.
I have Narcan a person at 12 o'clock. 7 o'clock that evening, I'm Narcanning them again.
Narcan's manufacturer has not yet determined how much it will cost, but it is expected to be available for purchase by late summer.
The country has a new national monument, and it's called the Ancestral Footprints of the Grand Canyon. The land around the canyon is now protected. President Biden was there for Tuesday's announcement. And our Bo Erickson followed the president's visit and spoke with tribal leaders about what this means for them.
Here at Red Butte Mountain and almost 1 million acres of land surrounding the Grand Canyon is the newest national monument. President Biden made this announcement today here in northern Arizona, and it's actually the 5th national monument that he's established while in office. There are 2 main goals of this new national monument. The first is to stop any new leases for mining here in this area, and the second is to protect the ancestral sacred lands of many Native American tribes in this area. And when I spoke to tribal leaders here at the announcement today, they welcome this decision.
This action to create this monument in the hopes of our ceremonial people will multiply to make sure that the Mother Earth, is there for the well-being of everyone.
One other environmental issue that was hard to ignore today is this extreme heat that Arizona and many southern states have been experiencing for the past few weeks. President Biden said that this is the example of climate crisis in action, these 110, 120 degree days here. And he also warned Jeff that Republicans in Congress are trying to repeal some of his climate legislation that was passed last year. Jeff?
Bo Erickson, thanks.
Amid an 875% increase in unsheltered homelessness over the past 4 years, what you have started to see on the Truckee River, on Wells Avenue, and in other places is hundreds and hundreds of people with no place to go and no homeless service system designed to meet the particular needs that folks there have.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, where they supposed to go? Hey, hey, ho, ho, where they supposed to go? Hey, hey.
We can't provide homes for every single person. That's just simply impossible.
Homeless here.
for almost 8 years now.
So I lived in this apartment for about 4 years now, and recently the owners have decided that they want to raise the rent by 44%.
As it is in so many states and communities around our country, homelessness is growing here in Reno, Sparks, and Washoe County, and it's an issue we all need to come together to solve.
Hey, we've been telling you guys for 10 days. How'd you not know?
My neighbor was just murdered and shit.
Okay.
I've really been having a hard fucking time. I wasn't here for nothing.
Then you can have a hard time down the road. Go.
Can I please have enough time to get
No, you're the last person here. Stop arguing. Get one cart and go.
Walk away.
We're fucking people. We're tired of being treated like this.
They said it was because of the camping ordinance, and we weren't camping. That's where we live.
Explaining many of the issues that arise when, in a very brief period of time, you're trying to move a large number of people into a gigantic tent.
We're trying to figure it out, but we can't have you here. This can't.
It's a public fucking place. Fuck you. You're the lieutenant?
Yes.
Okay, so what was the charge that Melody is being charged with?
I don't think we've completely made all the decisions yet on that quite yet.
Are we here to be helping poor people who live on the street?
Assistance has been given for many, many days.
It speaks to a level of desperation that still exists, despite, the happy face that's been painted a lot of times by different advocates, by city officials and stuff. We're still in a crisis.
Lamentablemente hemos transformado nuestra ciudad y nuestra región y nuestro país en el basurero del mundo. El problema es que solamente un 15% de eso es lo que se vende como segunda mano. El 85% viene a dar a los vertederos clandestinos.
Esta es claramente poliéster, ¿verdad? En la antigüedad la ropa era más que nada de algodón. En estos momentos que el material que utilizamos predominante en estas prendas es el poliéster. Ahora, ¿qué es el poliéster? Es justamente un polímero sintético que tiene un tiempo de biodegradación de muchos años en comparación al algodón.
La ropa, como no tiene una disposición legal hasta el día de hoy, la única solución que le da a la gente es quemarla. Y cuando se quema, la polución y el humo hace que para nosotros sea un grave problema. Y esto a nosotros nos genera un incendio anual de grandes proporciones.
Aquí hay poblaciones que viven dentro del basurero, entonces ellos están inhalando directamente estos gases que se producen.
No es fácil de conciliar tantos intereses para poder hacer una solución tajante. Pudiera hacer un llamado, ¿cierto?, en el fondo a la conciencia ambiental de los empresarios que importan para preferir, ¿cierto?, ropa de primera selección, ropa en buen estado, no importar basura, y también, ¿cierto?, a las empresas que venden, o sea, a los países que venden.
Nadie quiere vivir en un basurero. Altos Pisos es el patio trasero, ya ni siquiera el patio trasero de Iquique o de la región, sino que hoy día del mundo.